You know, when the house gets quiet like this and the clock over the stove starts ticking louder than it has any right to, I sometimes drift back to the summer of 1964. I was 19 that year. Thought I knew most everything worth knowing. Turns out, I didn't know much at all. Our town sat flat and sunbaked in central Illinois, cornfields stretching so far they looked like green oceans when the wind moved through them. My father ran a small auto repair shop off Route 9. The sign out front read, Harlan and Son, though I hadn't earned the son part yet. I swept floors, fetched tools, and tried not to strip bolts. That June started like any other. Hot mornings, cicadas screaming from the trees, the smell of gasoline and hot rubber hanging in the air behind the shop. I figured I'd work beside my father the rest of my life. It wasn't a bad life. Honest work. Predictable. But sometimes predictability feels like a lid screwed on too tight. The first sign that something was shifting came in the form of a faded blue pickup truck coughing its way into our lot. It rattled like it had opinions about every mile it had traveled. Behind the wheel was a woman I'd never seen before, maybe mid-30s, hair tied up in a red scarf, eyes steady as a horizon line. She stepped out, looked at the sagging sign above our shop, and said, "You the folks who fix engines or just talk about it?" My father chuckled. "Depends on the engine." She popped the hood without another word. The truck belonged to a traveling carnival, she explained. They were setting up just outside town for the week, Ferris wheel, ring toss, the whole bit. The engine had been overheating since Peoria, and if it didn't make it to Springfield next, half their equipment would be stranded. A carnival. In our town. Now, that might not sound like much to you, but in 1964 that was like a spaceship landing in the cornfield. For a boy who'd never been farther west than the Mississippi, it felt like the world had just pulled into our gravel lot. My father agreed to take a look. I hovered nearby, pretending to organize wrenches while listening to every word. The woman introduced herself as Claire. She spoke plainly, but there was something in her voice, a kind of weariness wrapped in determination. While my father worked, she wandered into the shop and studied the old photographs on the wall, black and white shots of cars we'd rebuilt, men standing proudly beside engines. "You ever leave this town?" she asked me suddenly. The question hit like a dropped socket on concrete. "Not really," I said. "No reason to." She tilted her head. "There's always a reason. Sometimes you just don't recognize it yet." I didn't know why that bothered me, but it did. By late afternoon my father had diagnosed the problem: cracked radiator hose, worn fan belt, a few other tired parts that had seen better days. We didn't have everything in stock. The nearest supplier was 40 miles away. Claire glanced at her watch. "We open tomorrow night." My father wiped his hands on a rag and said, "We'll get it done." And then he did something unexpected. "Tommy," he said, tossing me the truck keys. "Take the Ford. Run to Decatur. Bring back what we need." It was the first time he'd sent me alone that far on shop business. I felt it in my chest, that small widening space where responsibility lives. The drive to Decatur felt like crossing a border. The road stretched straight and hot under the sun. I remember gripping the steering wheel, thinking about what Claire had asked. "You ever leave this town?" When I returned with the parts, the carnival had begun to rise from the empty lot like something out of a storybook. Metal frames against the sunset. Canvas snapping in the breeze. Strangers moving with purpose. We worked until dark fixing that truck. Claire stayed nearby, handing tools when needed, asking sharp questions about what my father was doing. She wasn't just some passenger, she understood machinery in a way that surprised me. When the engine finally turned over smooth and steady, she smiled, not wide, not flashy. Just satisfied. "You saved our season," she said. My father shrugged. "Just doing the job." But as she climbed into the truck, she looked at me again. "We could use someone who knows engines," she said casually. "Summer help. Travel's good for the bones." My father laughed like it was a joke. I didn't. That night, I lay awake listening to the distant clank of carnival rides being assembled. I imagined lights flickering on, music drifting over the fields. I imagined not knowing where I'd wake up next week. And for the first time in my life, staying felt heavier than leaving. The carnival opened the following evening. Half the town showed up. Children sticky with cotton candy. Teenagers pretending not to care. I told my father I was heading over just to have a look. He grunted but didn't object. The Ferris wheel turned slow against the purple sky. Calliope music drifted through warm air. And there, near the ticket booth, stood Claire, arguing with a man about wiring on one of the light panels. Without thinking, I stepped closer. "Need a hand?" I asked. She glanced up, recognition flashing. "Thought you were tied to a shop floor." "Not tonight." She handed me a screwdriver. The wiring was sloppy. I fixed it in minutes. She watched carefully, nodding once. "You learn fast," she said. Something in her tone made it clear she wasn't just talking about wires. Later, as fireworks cracked faintly in the distance, she walked with me beyond the noise, toward the darker edge of the field. "You ever feel like your life's already decided?" she asked. I hesitated. "Yes." She nodded slowly, as if confirming something she already suspected. "Mine was too," she said. Until it wasn't. Before I could ask what that meant, a shout rose from the carnival grounds, sharp, urgent, not the sound of celebration. Claire's expression changed instantly. And we both started running toward the noise. We ran toward the Ferris wheel, where a small crowd had formed in a tight, nervous circle. The music had stopped. That alone made the night feel wrong. One of the ride operators was shouting up at the top carriage. A little boy, no more than 6 or 7, had slipped under the safety bar when the wheel paused at the top. He wasn't falling, not yet, but he was hanging awkwardly, his small hands clinging to the metal frame while his older sister screamed from the seat beside him. The wheel had jammed halfway through a turn. You could feel the fear ripple through the crowd like wind across tall grass. The man at the control lever kept muttering that the motor was stuck. Something in the drive chain had locked. The boy's fingers were already slipping. Claire didn't hesitate. She barked instructions sharp and clear, her carnival voice cutting through panic. "Kill the power. Now." The operator froze. "I said kill it," she snapped. He obeyed. The Ferris wheel shuddered into stillness. Claire turned to me. "You know engines. You know gears. You climb?" I looked up. The top carriage swayed gently in the night breeze. My stomach tightened. "I can climb." She didn't nod approval. She just pointed. "Then go." The structure was taller than it had seemed from a distance. The metal was warm from the day's heat and slick with dew settling in. I climbed rung by rung, trying not to think about the drop below or the hundreds of eyes watching. Halfway up, doubt crept in. "You belong in the shop." On solid ground. Then I heard the boy cry out. That sound burned doubt clean away. At the top, I reached the carriage. The boy's knuckles were white, his face streaked with tears. His sister clung to the inner rail, frozen. "It's okay," I said, though my own voice shook. "I've got you." The latch mechanism had bent when the wheel jammed. I could see the problem, a warped locking pin misaligned with the bracket. The kind of thing that wouldn't happen if maintenance had been more careful. The kind of thing I knew how to fix. I wedged myself against the frame, one arm braced, the other reaching for the bent pin. It wouldn't budge at first. My fingers slipped. Below, the crowd murmured. I thought about my father's steady hands. About how he never rushed a repair. Panic makes mistakes. "Look at me," I told the boy. "Not down." He did. I worked the pin back slowly, carefully, until it slid into place with a dull metallic click. The safety bar settled firm again. Then I eased him back into the seat and secured the latch properly. Only after that did I realize how hard my heart was pounding. The climb down felt longer than the climb up. When my boots touched dirt, the crowd broke into applause, not wild, just relieved. The boy's mother hugged him so tight he squealed. Someone clapped my shoulder. Someone else handed me a soda I didn't remember asking for. Claire stood a few feet away, watching. When the noise settled, she stepped closer. "You didn't freeze," she said quietly. "I wanted to. But you didn't." There was something in her eyes then, not admiration exactly. Recognition. Later that night, after the rides had shut down and the field grew quiet again, she and I sat on the tailgate of that faded blue pickup. The sky stretched wide and clear, stars sharp above the dark outline of the Ferris wheel. "I ran away when I was 17, she said suddenly. The confession caught me off guard. "From what?" I asked. "From a town that had already written my story," she replied. "Married by 20. Children by 22. Same house. Same view. Good people. Just not my road." She stared at her hands. I didn't know what my road was. I just knew I had to find out. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of popcorn and diesel. "You miss it?" I asked. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But missing something isn't the same as regretting leaving." Her words settled deep. The carnival would only stay 5 days. Then they'd pack up, roll on to Springfield, and after that who knew where. Indiana. Missouri. Maybe farther. "You ever think about coming along?" she asked, almost lightly. But I could hear the weight underneath. My chest tightened again, that widening space from before, only bigger now. I pictured my father in the shop at dawn, rolling open the garage door. I pictured the neat row of tools, the comfort of knowing exactly where I'd be every morning. Then I pictured the road stretching beyond the cornfields. "You'd have to decide fast," Claire added. "We leave Sunday." Sunday. 4 days away. That night I walked home slower than usual. The carnival lights blinked behind me, bright and restless against the dark. When I opened the back door, my father was still awake at the kitchen table, a ledger spread open in front of him. He looked up. "Hell of a thing you did tonight," he said. "You heard?" "Whole town heard." He closed the ledger softly. "Proud of you." Those words should have anchored me. Instead, they stirred something. He studied me for a long moment. "What's turning in that head of yours?" I hesitated. Because once you say a thing out loud, it becomes real. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that yet. I pulled out a chair and sat across from him, the kitchen quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. "There's more out there," I said carefully. "Isn't there?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, not as a boy who swept floors, but as someone standing at a threshold. And then he reached over and closed the ledger completely. "Son," he said slowly, "what are you really asking?" When he asked me that, "What are you really asking?" I felt something shift inside my chest, like a door I'd been leaning against finally giving way. I looked at my father sitting there under that yellow kitchen light, grease still in the lines of his knuckles, eyes steady and patient. He wasn't a man who chased drama. He didn't fill silence with noise. He waited. "I'm asking," I said carefully, "if I'd be wrong to want something different." The word sounded selfish in my own ears. He leaned back in his chair, studying me the way he used to study a stubborn engine. Not judging. Just assessing. "You talking about that carnival?" he asked. "Yes, sir." He nodded once. Slow. "You thinking of going with them?" There it was. Out in the open. I swallowed. "I don't know. Maybe. Just for the rest of the summer." The refrigerator hummed. A screen door creaked somewhere in the house as the night breeze moved through. My father folded his hands on the table. "When I was your age," he began quietly, "I got a job offer in St. Louis. Big shop. New equipment. Better pay." That stopped me. I'd never heard that before. "I didn't take it," he continued. "Your granddad's health wasn't good. Shop needed hands. And truth be told, I was scared." He didn't smile when he said that. "Scared of what?" I asked. "Of finding out I wasn't as good as I thought I was. Here, I knew my place. Out there," he shook his head lightly. "No guarantees." The words settled heavy between us. He met my eyes again. "I don't regret staying," he said firmly. "This shop built our life. But I'll tell you something, Tommy, not choosing because you're afraid? That sticks with a man." He let that hang in the air. Then he added, softer, "If you go, don't go to run away. Go to learn something. About engines. About people. About yourself. And if you find out the road isn't yours, you come back. There'll always be work here. I hadn't realized until that moment how badly I needed his permission. Not because he controlled me, but because I didn't want to disappoint him. I won't let you down, I said. He gave a small half-smile. Son, you climbed a Ferris wheel tonight without freezing. I think you'll be all right. Sunday came quicker than I expected. The carnival grounds looked different in daylight, less magic, more machinery. Canvas folded. Bolts loosened. Rides coming apart piece by piece like puzzles solved in reverse. Claire was tightening straps on a flatbed trailer when I walked up with a small duffel bag slung over my shoulder. She looked at the bag first. Then at me. You sure? She asked. No, I said honestly. But I'm going anyway. That made her smile. The drive out of town felt unreal. The blue pickup in front of me, the caravan of trailers behind. I passed the water tower, the diner, the feed store, all the landmarks that had marked my entire world. At the edge of town, I saw my father's truck parked on the shoulder. He stood beside it, arms folded, hat low against the sun. The caravan slowed as it passed him. I rolled down my window. He didn't wave big or call out. He just gave one firm nod. Not goodbye. Just acknowledgement. That nod carried me farther than gasoline ever could. The weeks that followed were harder than I imagined. Engines broke at the worst times. Tempers flared in summer heat. I learned how to patch generators in the rain and tighten bolts by lantern light. I learned that people on the road carry both freedom and loneliness in equal measure. There were nights I missed the steady hum of our shop so much it ached. But there were other nights, standing under strange skies in towns I'd never heard of, when I felt something opening inside me. I wasn't just Harlan and Son. I was Tommy Harlan, mechanic. I found I had a knack for diagnosing problems quickly. Word spread through the carnival. I fixed more than rides, I fixed confidence. When something sputtered, folks came to me first. One evening in late August, parked outside a fairground in Missouri, Claire and I sat on the tailgate again. You're different already, she said. Am I? You stand like someone who chose something. That struck me. Because she was right. I had chosen. Not because I hated home. But because I needed to see beyond it. When summer finally thinned and the air hinted at fall, the carnival prepared to head farther south. Texas was next. A longer haul. A longer commitment. Claire found me by the tool trailer. You coming on? She asked. I looked at the horizon stretching west. And for the first time since leaving Illinois, I didn't feel pulled forward. I felt complete. I think, I said slowly, I've learned what I needed to. She studied me carefully, then nodded. That's the trick, she said. Knowing when the road has given you its lesson. We shook hands, firm, grateful. No promises beyond respect. I drove back home alone. When I pulled into the gravel lot of our shop, the sign reading, Harlan and Son, looked the same as it always had. But I didn't. My father stepped out, wiping his hands on a rag. You stay long enough? He asked. Long enough, I said. He looked me over, as if checking for dents. Then he handed me a wrench. Got a Chevy that's knocking. And just like that, I was back under the hood. Only this time, I wasn't there because life had decided it for me. I was there because I chose it. Years later, when I officially took over the shop, I kept the name the same. Harlan and Son. When you were born, I thought about adding another line someday. But that summer in 1964, the Ferris wheel, the open highway, the nod at the edge of town, that was the season that taught me something I've carried every day since. Leaving doesn't always mean you're meant to stay gone. Sometimes you have to step beyond the familiar to understand its worth. And sometimes the bravest thing a young man can do isn't climbing a Ferris wheel or chasing the horizon. It's choosing his life, eyes open, heart steady, and knowing he could have chosen differently. That's what changed me. Not the carnival lights. Not the applause. The choice. And every time I unlock this shop in the morning, even now, I remember that summer and feel grateful, not because I left, and not because I came back, but because for once in my life, I knew the difference.